Harriet Randbig. Thank you. I have a report of 4 or 5 items to talk about. We're gonna do some continued business, which is around some of the subcommittees. And last on our agenda, which we're gonna be moving up shortly. Hello, Counselor, how are you tonight? I think he's still logging in. Hi, okay. Ben asked us to send out a resolution about bicycle safety, and he's here to discuss any feedback. I'm going to get the meeting started with something unique. We gave 10 Somerville High School students $5,000 scholarships for college a couple months ago, because this commission earmarked those funds. We've received thank you cards and receipts from 9 of those students. And if I could think of a magical way to have sent these or got them to you, I would have, but I'm going to sort of scatter a few of them throughout the night. So bear with me. Dear Foundation, my family and I are thankful for your thoughtfulness and kindness. You thought of my dreams and treated them with care. You knew that they were important and to be accomplished was just a precious matter. Your support was greatly needed. Thank you for believing in me, for trusting myself. You are a part of my journey to becoming a clinical social worker to help people, just how you've given me a hand to help. I think they meant others. I'm grateful and overwhelmingly happy. So with that, I don't know how long you can stay with us, Ben. I know I'm going to put you towards the beginning, but if you, okay. I'm going to introduce Nicole. And I don't know if Miss Carly is with you or not, or she's off camera. Nicole was recommended to the commission, and she and I have been going back and forth, and Nicole's an amazing advocate and has this fantastic daughter who's as sweet as pie. I've seen pictures, and she too is definitely an advocate. And some of the some challenges that they've experienced are parks, not just getting around the city, but being able to walk in a park. Hey, Kate. And safely get to all the fixtures. She uses a walker. And I don't know if you want to add any context, Nicole. You don't have to.
Sure.
We've talked about a few new parks that are being built, and I've seen some feedback and requests from the public about accessible features. And I know you've been also trying to work through the city to get some changes made. So if you'd like to share a little bit, I've got about 5 or 6 minutes.
Cool. Yes. Okay. Shouldn't take that long. You know, as Holly said, can you hear me? Oh, okay. Sorry, I just heard a little static. As Holly said, I'm a mom of a 3-year-old little girl. She uses a posterior walker. Her name is Carly. And yeah, to my great surprise, now that she's of age to use playgrounds, we do not have an inclusive playground in the city. We don't even really have a playground with maybe more than 1 or 2 inclusive features, which I was surprised to find, because this is like the land of playgrounds, Somerville, right? There's playgrounds everywhere. So yeah, I definitely, identified that need, and I went to Parks and Recreation. I've had a few meetings with them, and was directed to speak to somebody at or the PTA at Kennedy School, which I actually just had a meeting with them a couple weeks ago. And I'm very excited by the response from the president there. She definitely sees the need. There's been some other parents there that have expressed that need as well. So that's the most recent kind of development on my end. You know, just to speak a tad bit more about Carly, we are, just to give you a sense of what we're dealing with. I have to bring like Play-Doh and crayons to the playground because there's just not enough for her to do. And, I worry about not only Carly, but other kiddos with disabilities, how this is affecting them socially, their self-worth, their self-esteem, and really what kind of a message this is sending to their, non-disabled, able-bodied peers. So yeah, it's time. It's time for us, and I'm trying as hard as I can. And if anybody has any tips or input, Holly has my information. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Appreciate it.
Sure. We have someone who's listed as HCORR. Thank you for joining. If you'd like to briefly introduce yourself, you're not required to. We always invite people to say hello. Okay. Thank you for joining us. Adrian, you had your hand raised.
I did. Nicole, it's good to see you again. Nicole and I and Councillor Strezzo actually met, I believe it was late April, mid-April, with Louisa, who is our fearless leader of urban forestry and public space. So I am happy to follow up with her. And if you don't mind, Nicole, I can certainly let her know that you've spoken with the PTA over at the Kennedy. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that was something we talked about during our meeting, so I'm happy to follow up with Louisa as part of this discussion, and happy that you were able to join us this evening.
Yeah, any update would be great. Thank you. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
And please know, Nicole, that we as a public body and as individuals really like to hear from residents and kids and understand what's going on. I have a personal perspective of how the parks have been for my family, and I'm sure many of us have had our own, but the timing is important because I believe we're in the process of designing and building and rolling out 2 or 3 parks. So we and Adrian, I know, will follow up on this. There's a note. Oh.
I would like to speak up if this is the appropriate time.
Could you introduce yourself?
My name is Helen Corrigan.
Hi, Helen. Please go ahead.
I have applied to become a member of the commission, but I have not heard back from anybody.
Oh, hi, Helen. This is through the chair. Hi, Helen. This is Adrian Pomeroy. We are in the process of responding to everybody that applied about interviews, and I was going to send out an email tomorrow morning. But I'm sorry you haven't heard anything at this point, but we're glad to see you this evening.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will try to speak slower. I believe that we got an email, or I got an email from you about that, and we are following up with all potential commissioners in the next couple of weeks.
I have a real hearing problem, and my screen has changed somewhat so that I can't click on to hear.
Helen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I have bilateral hearing aids, so sounds are tough sometimes. Adrian is expressing that she has your information and your application, and we're all very glad that you're here tonight. and that she will be reaching out in the next week or two to follow up with our candidates. So thank you. You will be hearing from Adrian very
Well,
soon.
I just wonder how long it takes, because I realize it has to go through the city council. I sent the application in early August. I thought it would be on the August agenda for the city councilors, and it was not. And I'm just wondering if it's going to be on this week or not.
So it is a longer process, and either myself or Adrian or both of us will be happy to reach out and talk to you about it. It's very important to us that we give you the information that you're asking for. But we're going to have to keep going through the agenda. And you're welcome.
Okay. I just have to say this.
Sure.
Why does it take so long? I keep reading that you need members, and I really want to be a member. I was on the commission for 10 years, from 1985 to 1995, not as a disabled person, but I was on the Board of Aldermen at the time, and I was the liaison between the board and the Handicap Commission as it was known then. I just, would like to see this process move forward.
Everyone on this call agrees with you and sympathizes with that.
So it will not be on the agenda on Thursday. So it means it will be at least another month and a half before I can come on the commission, right?
I think we need to take this offline just so that we can answer your questions and review that process. I just have to take it outside of this meeting. If there's time at the end, I will.
That is fine.
Okay.
But okay.
Helen, can
I'd
you?
like to hear from someone fairly soon.
Helen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I just pulled up the email you sent me. Is there a good time for me to call you tomorrow and I can explain to you the process?
Okay, that will be good.
Okay, what's a
And
good?
what is your name?
My name is Adrian.
Okay, Adrian.
All right, is morning or afternoon better?
I'm trying to think about what I have to do tomorrow. Anytime from 10 o'clock, 10 tomorrow morning on is fine.
Okay, I am putting it in my calendar right now and I will call you at 10 o'clock tomorrow, okay?
Okay, thank you. I would like to continue to sit in on the meeting.
Of course, of course.
We would
Everything's
enjoy
okay.
that very much.
All right, through the chair back.
Thanks, Adrian.
Okay.
I'm going to read another short one, another thank you note from our students. Thank you so much for the gift of the City's Commission for Persons of Disabilities Scholarship Award. As Vice President of the Best Buddies Club, I accept this award with great honor. This will be very helpful for housing next year when I attend Endicott College to study pre-health. I'm very grateful for your support and generosity. I'm gonna ask that Adrian, that you give your report next, if that would be okay.
Through the chair, certainly, but I did notice that while we were speaking on the item before the item you spoke about, that Frank or Harriet have their hand up. So I want.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Through the chair, this is Harriet Randvig, and I just wanted to let Helen know that you can sit in on any of our meetings. You may always be present. We welcome our residents, and I'm very sorry this process has taken so long. We all have been worried about the length of time it takes. And it occurs to me that another way we may help out with you hearing us is to type in some of it in the chat, which I don't know if you can read the chat from your computer, but it's a possibility. Thank you. I'm glad you're here.
Well, actually, and thank you for those comments. I now, because I pushed the right button, I now am able to see what you are saying.
Great.
I'm not real good at this, but every once in a while it works out okay. But I would really like to be able to have a stronger voice than I have now.
Yes.
Thank you both. Adrian, would you give your report next?
Of course. Just a couple things, and I hope not to take too much time because you all have a full agenda as usual and some guests. The first thing is, I know we have guests come and we have commissioners, and we will be getting new commissioners. And I just wanted to reiterate that when anybody on the commission or anybody who attends the meetings reaches out to me as a result of this interaction, I do my best to get back to anybody within a 24 to 48 hour period. Sometimes that is not always possible, or I'm trying to gather the information before I respond to you. But I just encourage patience on this end. If you feel it's urgent or it's something that's important to you, please let me know that and I can reprioritize. But it just helps with my communication to have sometimes that context, so I know, how to prioritize it for myself. And then I was also going to talk about, because there is interest from this group of the possibility of starting to meet in a hybrid scenario, which means those who are able would meet in person, and then we would set it up in that location for folks to join virtually via Zoom, if that is something that is better and the best way for them to join this meeting. The chair asked me to investigate the possibility of using the central library, which would be the auditorium, because this is a public meeting, so we need to have space just in case a bunch of people show up. I have booked the central library for the next 3 meetings, so October, November, and December, to finish out this calendar year. But there does need to be a shift, as I've discussed with the chair and the vice chair, in time, because the library closes at 9 o'clock on Tuesday evenings. And so this group would need to be done and essentially walking out the door by 8:45, 8:46. So if this group would like to attempt hybrid for the October meeting, which I believe is the 10th, that meeting would start at 6:30 and end, by 8:45. And those, as I said, are welcome in person. And then if you're more comfortable at home on Zoom, we can do that as well. But as most of you know, the city has finally adopted in using Zoom for external meetings, city council included. And so we need to provide best practices for that, because unlike us, some boards and commissions have not used Zoom. They've been using other platforms. So there are some best practices there, but this commission has already been putting those in place. So we're sort of ahead of the game on that, which is great. With that said, I will go back to the chair, because I don't know if we need to have a motion on vote or on shifting the time. Well, first, if hybrid is still of interest, at least for October, and then the time shift that would have to occur to make that happen.
Thank you, Adrian. I am gonna call a motion to put it to a vote. I'd like to motion that as of October, that the commission start having hybrid meetings, and they will begin at 7 p.m. We can discuss if they need to be a little bit earlier, but we have so many new members who are interested. I don't really want to shift the time around. So I'm proposing that we start at 7, but we have to be done at 8:30. And then depending on what our commissioners look like in November, I think then we can decide if we're going to change that, either the location or shift the time out. But for now, I am proposing that we move forward with hybrid meetings that will begin at 7, and then they will convene at 8:30.
Can I just say something?
Absolutely.
This is Katie, one of the commissioners. Has anyone, I have not had great experiences on hybrid meetings. Has anybody, when I feel like the people that are on, maybe this will be different if it's a majority, but I've found that people online often feel left out. They can't really see very well. Has anyone found that, or?
Through the chair, Kate, that's always a concern. I don't know if folks remember, but last fall when we brought back the community meetings, there was an attempt to do hybrid, and that's the same feedback the mayor's office got, is the people who were not in the room, felt very, I guess, isolated, and it was hard to keep up with the questions online versus the questions that were happening in the room. These commission meetings have a different culture, I think, than community meetings, as we know. I do know the city has made some advancements with some technology that we will have access to, that I'm going to get some training on, that will essentially sort of help fill that gap a little bit. It's not perfect because it's technology, but it's the ability to put everyone that's in the room sort of on the screen with everybody who's coming from home or wherever they're zooming in from. Again, not perfect, but sort of a way to close the gap. So I just wanted to offer that.
Harriet, you have your hand raised, and then we're going to move forward.
Okay. Through the chair, my concern is audio feature. If COVID keeps going the way it's going, I may not be able to attend in person, and I just hope it's getting better and better, because it's a bit of an issue. And I will probably say sure, because if people want this, then I think it's important. It's just, I hope it works.
Okay, I'm putting a motion forward that we move to in-person meetings in October, still starting at 7. And that clearly if we have issues with the technology or the communication, we will find something different and move from there. May I have a second on changing back to hybrid?
This is Pauline. I second it.
Thank you, Ms. Pauline. We'll put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Aye.
5.
Brian Postwaite, aye.
Thank you, Brian. I'd say the ayes have it. That would be all commissioners, and so that motion passes. Again, we're going to do this for October. We're going to do as much pre-work if we are able to test this out. And if it doesn't work, we'll find a new plan. And again, it is always optional to be in person or to be remote. Anything else, Adrian, that you'd like to add?
One thing on that, to Harriet's point, I don't know if with this latest COVID strand or how the cases will differ from summer sort of winding down, but if the city were to make a decision that things have to be fully online because of something like that, then of course, and I think this goes without saying, this commission would be expected to follow those for the safety of everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So saying that, and then if you want to table this to another part of the agenda, Holly, we can, but I was going to talk about the education opportunities that I talked to you about yesterday and Pauline earlier today and in an email to Frank and Harriet, but we can table that for later if you want.
Yes, I want to allow Harriet to have 10 minutes to talk,
Okay,
and then
sure.
I want to go right in for Ben.
Okay.
And I'm going to very quickly read another thank you note. Thank you for awarding me this scholarship funded by the Commission for Persons with Disabilities. I am truly grateful for your generosity and support. The award will be useful to me as I continue to pursue a higher education at Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Science. Your investment in my education is deeply appreciated. I am once again very thankful for your support and encouragement. Harriet, you have the floor. I'd like to give you 10 minutes tops, and if you need more, we can put it towards the end, if that would be okay.
Sure, I'll try to
If
make
you
it.
need less, that's fine too.
I just want to say, main topics are communication, and communication has many, many arms. So I'm sure what I speak about will by no means cover it all. Let's just put it that way. I'll put one of the great things or the good things that's happening is that since Pauline and I joined the commission and before, it's been a bit of a struggle to get some the right supplier for example, materials and an agenda in Braille or in Boston Braille. And the city had it on its budget for quite some time and then did procure one, I believe sometime during the summer, but I don't have a date for that. And now there is the next step, I believe, is that we have to find a competent consultant who will not only install the necessary software. I'm not sure it's going to be at Central Library, but I kind of hope so. And also train those who will be responsible for the embosser on how it should be used. And so I'm really happy to report that. And it's a good step in the right direction. And I am a computer user and iPhone user. And so one of the tasks I gave myself is to test our city website. And not unlike many websites, it is not particularly accessible. And there's a great receptivity in the administration, but I think less resources. And I believe we have 2 or 3 new staff. And then as of yesterday, Adrian and Holly and I and Associate Commissioner Frank Lee met with Hawken, who is a marvelous communications and IT person for the racial and social justice. And we've begun to share with him quite a list of things that we need to update and make accessible for everyone, including recordings of each of our meetings and links to documents so that we can easily get at them if we're computer users, and then finding out what other means of communication people need and making that available. So in very broad strokes, those are some of the things that that the commission is working on, that Frank and I have particularly taken a lot of interest and time to research what you can and cannot get to in the website. And it by no means does it feel intentional. It's kind of what the society does, is unless it's pointed out and then advocated for, there seems to be no need. It's kind of one of those chicken or the egg things. If you don't have people asking for it because it's not there. And then when you have a few people advocating, then it begins to be possible. And so that would be my very short summary, and I would welcome any questions or any additions, because as I said, this is a very brief summary. Don't all shout at once. Anybody have any questions?
Oh, Holly, I think you're muted.
There we go. I'm just going to add one other thing that has happened in the last few weeks. Harry and I joined the PTAC group, and we walked Tough Street, and she dragged me out of the house to walk it the day before so we could test run it and sort of understand what the front and the ends were, so that when we actually went to the walkthrough and walked with them, she would sort of have an outline of where it was. And we met several amazing residents, and we had some great opportunities to show city staff what it's like to try to cross the street or to use a cane, and they were very receptive. So Brian, you have your hand up. Would you like to say?
Yeah, this is Brian Polstwaite. I was just going to ask Harriet on her previous conversation about communications.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Sure.
Harry, I just wanted to make sure I understood it. Your telling of it sounded very positive, but no actual on the ground improvements as of yet. Is that a fair understanding of your
Yes.
assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, for starters, the front page search box doesn't work.
Right.
The
So-
filter by department search box doesn't work.
Yes.
So it isn't that, I mean, I know the administration knows about it, but we've got to figure out how to support them to get the right kind of consultants and stuff, I guess, you know?
Okay.
Something from, okay.
Yeah, the only reason why I was asking is I feel like this has been an issue for you for pretty much since you've started, and I'm not, aside from actually getting a embosser in the building but not operable, and having communications and conversations, I'm anxious to see progress and it improve, and I'm looking to see if you feel that we are approaching that, or if it still feels far away.
I wish I could answer that. I mean, in terms of concrete, tangible ways, no. But I feel actually the reason I'm more positive is that when we spoke with Hawken yesterday, I think he understands a little more, and I'm actually going to do a demonstration for him in the near future, the next week or two, if he has time for us, so that he can sit with me and actually see what is lacking. I've done a little bit of this with Dan at a Dan Moore at maybe quite a few months ago, but at the time he didn't have his new staff, which I think started in January. I'm trying to remember when. And even though we have new staff, it doesn't mean they're schooled in something called WCAG. Tell me what it means, Frank.
I think it's Web Content Accessibility Guidelines.
Yeah.
It's just designing for people with disabilities,
Yeah.
or universal design, I
And
guess, but for web.
Ironically enough, with Holly, we've investigated Arby's and a few other food establishments that do have accessible websites. Mind you, they're not as complex as the city, but
Also, we didn't fully test them.
that's true. We didn't completely test them, but I do know blind people who make orders online. So anyway, I'm working to be positive about it, and I'm a very pushy advocate. So have no doubt, I'm like, as we say, a dog on a bone, although I'm trying to be as thoughtful and restrained. I mean, likewise, I feel the same way about the fact, now that we're on the topic, but I'll just say very briefly, if I'm within my 10 minutes, that walking around Tough Street and trying to cross Tough Street at Cross Street and being able to demonstrate to Viola, who's a senior planner, I believe in mobility, the complete inadequacy of what's laid out there as guidelines. Well, I'm extremely worried about all the changes in Davis Square, and I would so welcome an opportunity, though I know it's signed and sealed and contracted, and probably my input may not make any difference, but at least with that one more opportunity to share it, I would do it not for me only, but for anyone that would have the same challenges. So that's all I have to say for now. And I really appreciate your ear, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Harriet. That your explanation is really helpful for me. And I agree, we need to get out into Davis Square and walk around.
And it will take no more than a half an hour, I promise you. So
Thank you.
It'll take more, but you can spend the first half hour learning how. I've never been educated more, trying to be the arm to walk along Harriet. I recommend you have strong ankles because her swing is quite strong, and she is brave, more than I could ever be. So thank you both.
Sure.
One
more short one. Thank you so much.
Pauline, I just want to add,
Sure.
if you
please.
want another walker, you've got me.
Yep. You got two of us.
I think that's a great opportunity. We may even have some cute little child who might like to show us what makes their world accessible, and not just how they walk, but how they play. So maybe we'll make it a future party and get
For
everybody
sure.
together.
For sure.
Thank you to the Commission for Persons with Disabilities for this scholarship. This scholarship will ease some of the financial pressure my family is under to pay for my studies. This will be very helpful for books and dorm supplies when I attend Northwestern University next year.
Wow.
That was very impressive. These are all very impressive students. I'm immensely grateful for your generosity and support. Thank you. All right, Ben, you have the floor. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to talk and 5 minutes for some feedback. I know if you have more time, that's great, but you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I don't think that I'll need to talk for that long. So I've met some of you, but certainly not all of you, and I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to be here. For folks I haven't met, I'm Ben Ewan-Campen. I'm one of the city councilors. I represent Ward 3. And the reason that I asked to be here tonight is to talk about a bicycle-related issue and to get your all's feedback, whether that's tonight or whether that's in the future, phone calls, emails. And the issue is this. So several months ago, we all on the city council started getting emails from constituents who were kind of all of a sudden getting pulled over by the police for riding a bike through a red light, which is illegal. And everyone should recognize that in the state of Massachusetts, cyclists are not allowed to go through red lights. But a lot of these cyclists pointed out to me that this was a recent kind of policy decision that the police department had made, and they pointed me to a lot of research from the federal government, and this was all kind of news to me. And what that research showed is that there are approximately 8 states in the country that have passed a law that makes it so that cyclists are told to treat stop signs as yield signs, and then to treat a red light as a stop sign. And I want to be very emphatic here. This is if and only if there are no pedestrians present and if there are no vehicles present. So this is known as the Idaho stop because Idaho was the first place that legalized this, but a number of states have done this since then. And the federal government, the Department of Transportation, has now had the opportunity to study what happens in the states that have this policy versus don't. And the kind of, to me, and I think to a lot of people, counterintuitive finding was that when this policy is enacted, that again, when the coast is clear, when there's no one there allowing cyclists to start before a red light is actually changed, actually increases safety in the sense that the rate of crashes between cyclists and vehicles goes down, decreases the rate of injuries, and has absolutely no effect on putting pedestrians at greater risk. So that was kind of new information to me, and it led me to start advocating on the city council that to encourage the police to kind of go back to the way things were, where we're not spending extra time and money enforcing this policy that our own federal government tells us actually decreases the risk of injury. And again, just to be really clear, we're not talking about cyclists who are going through when there are pedestrians there. That is and always, remains illegal. So this is not something that the city council has any power over. This is a state law. This is more about kind of public education and thinking about, we have limited public safety resources. What are the most effective ways to make sure that we're using them to increase street safety? And do we think that this is an effective use of those resources? Obviously, this is a much broader conversation. And so I think that it's really important to me that I solicit feedback and input from all sorts of folks. And in particular from your commission, because I know that, these can be hot button issues. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. And I get lots of angry emails from people who really hate cyclists and then from cyclists who really hate cars. And my position is always, when you have a hot button issue, let's look at the data. Let's look at how we can keep people safe and try to kind of make decisions that way. But I also am very cognizant of the fact that this is something where kind of I am still learning and very much want to hear feedback from this commission, and that I welcome any feedback that you all have tonight. Again, we're not kind of making a decision one way or the other. This is more kind of, it's a conversation, an ongoing conversation that we're having between the city council, the mayor's office. Ultimately, this would just be a kind of discretionary decision of the police department at the mayor's office to kind of go back to the way things were 6 months ago, where, if a police officer on duty sees a cyclist going through when there are pedestrians present, putting people at risk, that would certainly be worthy of pulling someone over. But if there's no one there, there's no traffic, there's no pedestrians, just kind of let bygones be bygones. So I'm hoping that you all would be willing to share your thoughts, again, whether that's tonight or in the future. I'm happy to get together kind of one-on-one, phone calls, emails, whatever works for all of you. And thank you again, Holly, for having me here tonight.
You're very welcome. Very pleased that you would that you're here tonight. I do have a quick question. So there's sort of that bubble in my mind that surrounds schools, senior centers, churches, places of worship, certain areas that I always feel need a little extra safety. And I understand that this is more about the police not giving tickets to people on bikes who either go through, knowing that it's safe. My concern is always, sort of like the no right on red. If there isn't a sign, you can do it, which is sort of backwards to me. But that if this was something that could be addressed, not just, with an issue with not getting a parking ticket, but sort of how do we continue to, I don't want to say isolate, but make sure that these areas within the city that are that need to be more protected, stay protected. I would just like to add personally that when I, at the top of my street, when I go down School Street, I go to turn onto Broadway, there's I get the light to go and the pedestrians get the light to walk. And so I, living there, know that they have the same timing, which makes me crazy because I don't want to play chicken with people, and people don't want to play chicken with my car. But there are some little things, nuances that we could make a little bit safer, because the same thing would apply if someone on a bicycle pulls up and sees that no one's there and they go to turn. They're not expecting to have a pedestrian there when they're given that light. So, I've kind of gone a little bit off topic, but it's just.
No, I think these are incredibly important issues. So let me try to think of kind of three issues that I heard. There's the right turn on red. For folks who don't know, my understanding is that the city of Cambridge recently did away with right on red citywide, which I'm sure has infuriated a lot of drivers, but I think was embraced kind of as a pedestrian safety act. And that's something, I haven't heard that conversation officially start in Somerville, but it's something that I think is worth discussing. The city right next to us just did it. Big picture, so you have Director Postlethwaite in the room. He is someone who has worked on this for many, many years in an extremely productive capacity. I think we all know that the reality of how you keep streets safe doesn't really have to do with police enforcement practices. It has to do with street design. And those are issues that I often describe our kind of street infrastructure improvements. We're kind of in like an emergency room triage citywide, where there are so many serious problems, as I'm sure you all know, with street safety, kind of concrete and steel design issues, that we really need to kind of triage where we put the resources to fix stuff based on the most urgent concerns. And that is incredibly, frustrating for all of us that want to fix all of them, and, have constituents who are kind of live on a street that everyone acknowledges has serious problems. It's just not quite as serious as the street next door. So that's kind of an ongoing, very, very kind of complex and challenging problem, is to redesign the streets to be safe, and particularly to focus, as you said, around schools, around senior housing. And I think, I haven't kind of formally thought of, this conversation in that context, but I think that is a really good point. And in terms of the green lights at the same time as the walk signal, this is something where I've very much been a learner in this process. So, I'm sure that Director Postlethwaite could step in here, but there is a lot of kind of science behind how this decision-making goes. And my understanding is that this is kind of considered safety best practices in a lot of contexts. But I very much share your concern. And in specific contexts in Somerville where we've implemented it, it has, just led to a lot of conflict. And in some cases, we've rethought those. So in Union Square at the intersection of Webster and Washington, we just went back to kind of an all walk phase of the signal, and that was not a decision that was taken lightly. Switching how those signals work, takes a ton of engineering and a ton of public process to get there, and I'm sure that I see the director's hand is up. I'm sure that he can add more, but I would just say that is a very live area of conversation.
Please, Brian.
Councillor Ewan Campen, thank you for the kind words. It's always nice of you. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of the things that you said, because you're on point on so much of it. We do, or rather we're almost done developing a policy to better guide new projects on all walk signals versus concurrent walk signals, which is the jargon for when a green and a walk sign are on at the same time. That's called concurrent, versus an all walk signal when all motorist traffic has a red light while all directions of the walk are on. And the easiest way to think of it is like, if there are a lot of turning movements at an intersection, then the all walk signals just tend to work better. And yes, we do go back and change things when they don't work as well as we thought they did. And that's what we did at Union Square. When it comes to right on red, we have, there has been some conversations with the Traffic Commission, and we have addressed and responded to what Cambridge has done. A little bit different than Cambridge. Instead of just doing a blanket requirement for stop on red or no right on red, we basically went through an accounting of all the intersections that we had in the city, and we basically created a policy where we will be putting up right on red unless there is an overwhelmingly traffic safety reason for allowing right on red to continue. And though we haven't run into any of those circumstances, we feel like it's important to keep that available to us in case we are in that situation, which can technically happen. We just don't have those situations in the city right now.
Thank you, Brian. Harriet, I'm going to just see if anyone else has a comment.
This is Pauline, and I don't know whether I'm going to be off topic or not with this, but I've had concerns about bicycling and the bike lanes and those types of things. When a blind person is at a street crossing and a bike is, coming or whatever, we're not going to hear it. How in the name of heaven are we going to be safe?
Pauline, have you had situations where this has happened to you personally? I agree with what you're saying, that it is very dangerous. I barely hear if something is behind me, especially movement. I can't catch it. I'll frequently turn and walk into someone in my house, usually in the kitchen. But have you had this happen to you?
No, but it's just the idea that I'm standing at a street crossing, ready to cross. The parallel traffic is moving so I can walk across the street perpendicular. And then all of a sudden there's a bike and I don't know it because I can't hear it.
I'm very sorry.
I hear you, Pauline. This is Ben. Thank you for that. I don't know, we've talked about this. This is something where, frankly, I need to learn more about. We're not the first city that has had to deal with this, and I guarantee that there are people out there who have thought about best practices here. So I very much welcome your feedback. I mean, yeah, frankly, I don't know the right answer. I mean, I think that there are going to always be cycles and cars and, pedestrians. And so these conflicts are always going to exist, and figuring out how to best manage that safety is what our job is. So I very much thank you for continuing to raise this issue. It's something that I care about a lot and need to educate myself on more.
And Pauline,
Well,
also, please go ahead.
When we were learning to travel independently, one of the first things we learned was when you get to a crossing and the traffic is parallel to you, you can cross the street in front of you. And if there's a walk sign, we had these in walks in White Plains when we were getting our dogs. The walk sign talked. it said walk or don't walk. So we knew when to walk and when not to walk. And these are things that I wish could be incorporated here. And it's not only with bikes, you know, but as I said to Ben the other night, these bike lanes that you've got configured, how are you going to, you know, put those up with bus stops and everything else so that it'll be safe for people to get off a bus or get on a bus?
I think one thing that I just want to add is when this commission and residents are given the opportunity to be in these spaces and to demonstrate what it's like, people call it our lived experience, but to be able to see what a park is like when you're 3 feet tall and all you want to do is play with your friends, or
Yeah.
if you can't cross the street without walking into the middle of the road, or you are concerned about the bikes and the bus, and you're looking at new construction on a street and the sidewalks. The city wants our input, but if we don't give it, if we don't say something or ask them to come walk with us, that's the most powerful thing in my opinion, is to actually demonstrate what you're saying. Ben, you had a comment, and then we may be out of time for you.
I'm more than happy to wait and hear if there's other feedback tonight. And frankly, I'm if the feedback is, Ben, we think you are a moron, give up this fight, that is fine too. I've heard it all on this.
No,
You're far
never.
from a moron.
Thank you, Pauline.
Well, it's true.
So just, I know that Pauline raised a really good question about how do bike lanes work with bus stops with handicap parking. So if you look around Cambridge right now, they've put in a bunch of new bike facilities that are actually what they call quick build, meaning, years from now, they will probably be, more concrete and asphalt. Right now, they're kind of flex posts and paint. And I was biking on one the other day on Hampshire Street, and the way they work is that the bike lane goes along the sidewalk, you're separated from traffic, but then wherever there's a bus stop, the bike lane actually goes out into the street and the bus comes over to the curb. Same thing with handicap parking spots. There is the parking spot is still against the curb as it needs to be, and the bike lane in those areas shifts around it. So I would imagine that there are different ways to approach these challenges. That's what I've seen. And that's certainly, in any case where those situations arise going forward in Somerville, that's what I would advocate for. And I would imagine our city staff as well. I mean, you can't have a bus discharging into the street, obviously, where there's a bike lane like that. All of this stuff has to happen in an integrated way. We have people who ride the bus, we have pedestrians, we have cyclists. We can't kind of pick winners and losers. We have to have a solution that works for everybody. It's often kind of a technical solution, but as long as you said, Holly, kind of we have the voices in the room making sure that we're aware of all these issues. I feel very confident that we can do all of these things.
Thank you, Harriet. I appreciate you being patient.
Yeah, it'll
Please
be
go
brief.
ahead.
It'll be very brief.
No, it's okay.
I guess I realized when I was reading some of the material that you sent, that at stop signs, you look to see there's everything's clear, cars, pedestrians, but the whole issue, I guess, is more stoplights are somewhat different. So if the same directive would work, that when you are about to turn right or, turn or go forward, whatever direction you're going, whether it's a stop sign or a 3-way or 4-way or 5-way intersection, the cyclist is educated to know it's on them to make sure that there's no pedestrian in the crosswalk or no wheelchair or no whatever, like that. And this leads to a bigger issue in my experience, and probably I need to go to the bike associations. education of cyclists as to the speed that they, like bike paths, another whole thing. And you and I can have a conversation separately about that. But as a blind navigator on the bike path, when people speed by you from behind and don't ring a bell or say on your left, you just go, oh my God. They don't know that my cane could flash out and catch in their spokes and we both be down. You know what I mean? Things like that. So separately, I would love to address that with you or anybody else you would recommend. That's one other issue. But I mean, it does confuse me. At a stop sign, you look around, nobody's there, you go. But if you're in a four-way intersection, I'm unclear, you know, as an individual trying to cross the road. You see what I mean? I'm not sure. So maybe I haven't read thoroughly enough the directives for the cyclists and how that's communicated to cyclists and all that. So if you have a word or two about that, that's great. Otherwise, we can take this offline.
Of course. Yeah, no, thank you for that, Harriet. I mean, first, it is not a secret that there are a lot of jerks out there cycling. I mean, just like there are a lot of jerks driving cars, and there are people who are incredibly dangerous on bikes. I bike every day for my job. I can't drive there or take the T, so I bike. And literally every single day I see people driving cars in a way that is life-threatening, makes your blood boil. I also see cyclists, being jerks. And I would love to sit here and say, I feel confident that we're going to be able to educate everyone on how to behave on their bikes. I honestly, my sense is anyone who's going to come to a city event about safe biking, that's not who we need to worry about. There are just, I don't know another way to put it. There are folks who, for better or for worse, it's just trouble. And kind of the way I view it, our job is to create streets where we really, really minimize the damage that any one person can do, whether that's someone driving a car, whether that's biking. I often return to this experience I had. Someone opened a door into me when I was biking. I work in the Harvard Medical School area, and I was okay. I was not hurt, but I, turned to kind of yell at the person who had opened their door into me. And it was like a young mom holding a kid who was attached to a breathing machine, who was clearly trying to get into a hospital and was just freaked out. And it was just the perfect encapsulation that it's not about one person being angry at another person for making a mistake. It's about the city should not create infrastructure where someone like me trying to bike home to my family is in the way of someone rushing to get their kid to a hospital, right? It's up to the city to create infrastructure where even if you do screw up, even if someone is being a jerk, no one's life is in danger. So I'll stop there. I think on the bike path, yes, it is, especially the new part, it is too narrow. And, especially with the new e-bikes, which I am one of the people who rides, they go too fast. And that's just obviously true. And to be perfectly frank, I think to me, that is an argument for why it is so important to continue to build bike lanes on the streets, because we can't have every biker in the city on the path. I mean, you've seen it, right? There are kids, there are elderly people. Like we need to have that continue to be a community path, not a bike path exclusively. And in order to do that, we need safe options on the streets. So I'll stop ranting, but thank you, Harriet.
Thank you.
Adrian, did you have something you wanted to add? Oh, please.
No, I don't bike. I do spin class, so I joke I'm an indoor cyclist on a bike that goes absolutely nowhere, in a dark room. So are the e-bikes that the counselor just mentioned, do they have bigger tires? Like they're
not all of them.
Not all of them.
So
Okay.
some of them, what an e-bike means is it has a battery,
Right.
and some of them you don't even have to pedal.
Oh.
Most of them, I don't know about most, the common ones that I see around Somerville is you have to pedal, but when you pedal, it helps you.
Okay.
Most of them are limited to go 20 miles an hour, which is pretty fast. But you see a lot of parents of young kids ride these because if you're hauling around a kid, it's one way to get around. And they can go fast and they can be deceptive, right? Because you see them from far away and you think, oh, a bike's coming, I have X amount of time, but they're going 20 miles an hour, right? So yeah, this is something that I think all of the Bryan postal weights in the world are going to be dealing with, kind of how to address that kind of thing in our infrastructure going forward.
Yeah. And
But you
aren't
can-
there speed, I guess, limits in bike lanes? Like, something can't go, am I wrong about that? I could be wrong.
I don't actually know the legal answer. I mean, just
No,
as a
yes,
human
I made
being, like,
something up.
yes,
No,
there is a
okay.
very clear,
It's not a bad thing that you're suggesting, but
If any of you have been to New York City, they've built a lot of bike lanes over the last couple decades, and they're full of people basically going for, like, delivery drivers going 40 miles an hour. It's really, really scary and dangerous. And, you know, that is, thankfully, we're not there. But
Well, there is that delivery service that has a,
Get her.
yeah, that's on, I think they're on Merriam Street where I used to live, and those bikes go pretty speedily.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, that is something
Regardless
that all of us
of-
are paying attention to.
Yeah.
regardless of how good the infrastructure may be, or the posting of rules or the design, when you have the person who cut me off this afternoon riding some type of a 2-foot only like skateboard that was motorized while they were carrying a briefcase and on their cell phone and cutting across Broadway at quite a big clip, I was just, you people still have to make the right decisions for safety, but this person was just very careless, I'd say. Anyone else have comments about safety, traffic, bikes, recreation? I saw a little face pop up in the window.
Would it be okay if that little face said hello?
I think that would be appreciated if that little
Okay.
face said hello.
She had a face full of pasta sauce earlier, so I was trying to spare you all. 1 second. I am, as you can imagine, trying to teach her to be her own little advocate. So I made a promise myself a while ago I would bring her to every meeting. Can you say hello, Carly? We were talking about the playgrounds. Isn't that cool?
What do you like to do in the playgrounds, Carly?
I did travel.
Yeah, that's her grandma. What do you like to do at playgrounds? What's your favorite thing?
Swing.
Swings. Yeah.
And paint some houses.
You like the little houses at the Cypress Street playground in Brookline, huh?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna hand it to Vavo. Thank
No,
you.
that's okay. No, that's okay. She's a
Thank you so
resident
much.
with a great point of view and lovely feedback.
Yes, it's true.
And it's
true.
nice
If
to
anyone would
see
like
her
to come and see
tonight.
us play, more than happy to have you join us. And Harriet, I would love to join you as well sometime too in your walk.
Okay, I'm gonna read another card, and Ben, we understand if you have to jump off. We really appreciate your time, and we will clearly all be following up with you with various opportunities. So, and you do the same. What if there's something we can help with?
Amazing. Thank you all so much. It's
Thank
great to
you.
meet
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
I'm honored to have
you.
received the Commission for Persons with Disabilities Award. In the future, I want to help as many people as I can through the medical field. I strive to learn, teach others, and make sure everyone's voice is heard. This award will be very helpful for tuition when I attend the University of Connecticut next year. I'm very grateful for your support and generosity. Okay. I'll bounce around again because you know how much I love to do that. I'm just gonna talk briefly about our first event, the Red Sox ADA Disability Pride event. It was wonderful. It was a ton of last minute work that wouldn't have been possible without Adrian Pomeroy and so many people that she surrounded herself with to get this moving. I got to meet residents and some people who were interested in joining the commission. We had people of all ages, all abilities, and it was just a beautiful day. So I think I'd like to thank everyone who was able to come, everyone who voted to allow this to be an activity. And with that end, to that end, one of the residents who I sat next to, also interested in being a future commissioner, expressed their interest in going to a Celtics game. So I've been investigating accessible seats, group tickets, how we would work together, and I'm on a list waiting to hear back from the group ticket people. And I'd like to discuss funding another event. Deep breath, Adrian. This will be months out. It would be, what is it, September? It was the end of the season. So we would need a plan. We would need a process in place of what to follow so that we could get this through with the city and figure out how to promote this event. But I would, yes, Miss Adrian.
The first sort of step in this plan is what is occurring now, which is good. A couple months is good. The city really prefers, in terms of cutting a check from start to finish, meaning like the requisition is in and all those things, anywhere from about 6 to 8 weeks. Often happens sooner, but this would not be the only thing the city would be processing in whatever week it would appear in the queue. And so it's perfectly feasible. I would just, I think, and also more time is a benefit in order to recruit folks, and giving Hawken, who is our PIO officer, and myself time to promote it adequately through the city channels. The only other thing I would say, so I would say to you, Holly, once you get sort of ideas about how much it would cost per ticket, that would sort of start the process from the financial side. And then in terms of logistics, the good news is that TD Garden, where the Celtics play, is extremely accessible by the MBTA because it is North Station. And I'm sure for folks who would rather utilize Ubers or the ride, that's a pretty easy drop as well. So with that said, I think it would really just fall to try to start to plan logistics about where would folks meet? Would there be several meeting spots so folks could travel into North Station together and get to the garden? And then Holly, I'm sure they'll let you know, but I'm sure just like Fenway, they have an accommodations policy depending on what people may need. And then also I'm sure they have the same bag protocol that Fenway does, which I think is a clear bag and a small bag. So I think the sooner rather than later, you all can plan out logistics and we can get info about money, puts us in a better position to, put you on a better position to advertise it and get it going and get people excited about it. I think the other thing that's exciting is we know the Celtics always fairly do well every season. Right? Am I right? I think I'm right about that.
Go green.
They're consistent except for that last game, but we won't talk about that. I'll just say they were tired. They were tired. Can we say they were just tired?
Hey,
No,
Pauline,
they
are
didn't
you
show up.
Are you a basketball fan too?
I am a sports fan.
Cool.
No, I'm serious. I watch
I
football,
know you
baseball,
are.
basketball. The only one I don't like is hockey.
You know, like, okay.
Hockey.
They're all very different.
Yeah.
All very different.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it at that. Adrian, can you help me? How much money do you remember that we allocated for the Red Sox? I know we didn't use all of it. Was it 5,000? I think.
So you ended up, you didn't allocate an amount for the Red Sox. You actually already had an idea. You already had reserved, I think, 46 tickets. So you knew the exact amount. So I think it was a little over 2,000 total.
Okay, but I think we had talked about plus a bus, plus this, and then we couldn't do the bus. I'm just trying to think of a ballpark. So the tickets are anywhere between $85 and $100. Of course, they go up to $700, $1,500. Not looking at that. I've spoken with the group ticket sales person many times, explained, we would need accessible seating. We'd need, a row or 2 rows possibly together with seats on the end. And I gave her the 3 least expensive games that are at the end of the season. So I don't know, I don't even recall who they would be. So I would estimate that we'd need to put aside $100 for a ticket. And if we were to get 20, 25 tickets, I think if we were to say $3,000 for tickets, would sort of be my estimate. But again, that's
Yeah, that sounds good, Holly. The other thing I'm thinking about, because my brain's just going, is, and now I'm losing my train of thought, but in terms of end of season, do you know what the dates are? That's where I was going.
like
Do
the
the-
last 3 games of the season.
Are there no dates yet, just because of how?
No, there are. I just don't have them in my brain at the moment.
Because
Hold on.
Celtics, and this is the regular season, as if they may not go.
Oh yeah, this is, the only other options were pre-games, which there was no way we could pull something off in like a month. That was just not going to.
All right, so regular season. I'm
Actually,
scrolling.
Get it right.
The
One second.
last 3 games of the regular season that I'm looking at aren't till April of 2024.
I found it, but it's so small. I can't find my
Did you
reading
just hear-
glasses.
So I just said it. Did you?
They're
hear me?
color coded by pricing guides. If you can
Right.
see this.
So what I'm saying is, what I'm looking at is this schedule in front of me is saying the last 3 games of the regular season are in April of 2024.
Yep. So I'm looking at, it was Houston. This was between December and January were the games that I
So
was looking at.
Houston is Saturday, January 13th.
I couldn't tell you the exactness. I had to give her options to see what's available, and then they get back to you. So I don't have exact dates. I'm just trying to say is that.
So Holly, what I'm saying is I am looking at exact dates right now. So if it's the Houston game, as an example, they are slated to play Houston on Saturday, January 13th at 7:00.
Yes, thank you. What I'm saying is I don't know which game. I had to give
Okay.
options, but they were towards the end of the season because it would be way too early to try to pull anything else off. So they certainly weren't the Lakers. Pink and blue.
That would be a good game. I would recommend, given the season, that you aim for January or early January, only because you will maybe have more interest because you're not conflicting with December holidays and plans and vacations and things like that.
Very true.
So that would be my suggestion.
Thank
And
you.
a weekend night, such as a Saturday, no, we're not we're aiming for a weeknight. Okay.
A weekend tickets prices. Oh Jesus, what's it doing? Let's see, Friday nights. So just to frighten everyone. Balcony seating, not top shelf seating. Preseason starts at 40 for balcony, goes up to 190 for balcony. if you were to sit in the other section, that's group sales, they're $215 a ticket. The average being between 90 and 100. So we were targeting balcony seats or balcony level group seats that are near accessible seats. And they were somewhere between $60 and $80, or everything was under 100. I did not want to go above that. But like I said, it's a lottery system. I put in the requests maybe a week or two ago, and then they get back to you and offer you different options. So I'd like to make a motion that we allocate, I'm going to say $3,000 towards tickets for this event, pending ticket information, pricing, to make a further decision on the dates, logistics, and who we'll be working with to be providing these seats to. So what I'm asking is that we simply a motion to allocate, did I say 3 or did I say 4?
You said 3.
You said 3.
3, unless someone else has feedback that they think it should be more. Okay, so I'm gonna put a motion forth that we allocate $3,000 from our fund to be put aside towards a Boston Celtics event, and that information will be forthcoming so we can decide on the dates and the information. And Brian, do you like the Celtics as much as you like the Red Sox?
I'll second.
No comment.
I'll second the motion.
Wait a minute, I'm gonna let Brian has a question.
Yeah, do we have an account? 2 questions. First, how much did we spend on Red Sox? And second is, do we have an account of our balance?
We have over 100, between 90 and 120 in there. I haven't seen interest posted, but we do have a large sum of money.
And we
I can get you an
spent,
exact number.
I think you all spent about 2,300 on Red Sox tickets, maybe a little less or more. I can pull up the invoice. It's somewhere.
And I feel like we might have allocated 5 for that because we were thinking a bus.
I think here's my concern is that we see a large pot of money and we're spending it. And we're not really looking at how much money goes into that pot on an annual basis. And a game is an annual, could become and likely would become an annual event. And so we should be basing whether we're doing this not on how much money is in the bucket, but how much money is coming into the bucket on an annual basis. If we're spending money to buy a capital item that will have many years of life to it, that will be able to support the disability community for a period of time, that's a good reason to spend down that bucket of money. But if we're looking at something that's going to be an annual event, we need to make sure that we're not spending more on an annual basis than we're bringing in and slowly eating away at that bucket of money. So I just feel like we need to have, there should be some budget considerations here if we're going to be approving money. Otherwise, we're not really doing our fiduciary duty to the commission and the funds associated to it.
Sure. I hear what you're saying. And I can tell you that on an average month, we get between $3,000 and $8,000 put into the account plus interest. And one thing that the funds, I know you talked about a capital purchase. I'm not sure exactly an example of one, but our funds are not to pay for something that the city would have been responsible for. And so an example would be doing a bunch of curb cuts. I'm trying to think of something that we would not be funding,
Yep.
nor would I recommend, but, you know, we definitely have enough money coming in. We definitely have a lot in that bank. Adrian, did you want to add something?
Yeah, two things, just to answer your original question and then Brian's. The exact amount on the Red Sox tickets was $2,906. And I believe that was for 46 tickets. With that said, to Brian's point, Holly, you are correct. This money should never try to cover the cost of something that the city should already be doing as a result of federal and state law. With that said, there are many cases within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts where other disability commissions have used this funding to do an above and beyond capital project, partnering with city staff and city council and the mayor's office to do a large capital project that would, to Brian's point, spend down this money. So I just want to put that out there, that that is a very common use, and it is an ideal, you know, events like this and annual things like this, I think, are good for morale and community and wonder and things. And I hope we can keep those things going, because there seems to be an interest for it. And it does benefit, it gets people with disabilities to an event that they may have not had access to previously, even though those are accessible things. With that said, there is opportunity for this money to be used for capital things that are essentially enhancements or sort of above and beyond things that the city may not have the funding to do, where it can be a really great partnership between this commission and engineering or capital projects or whoever. So I just want to make sure, to Brian's point, the commission is keeping these things in mind, because you have quite a large sum of money to use, and that's great. With that said, I do also, from a fiduciary responsibility perspective, and Holly knows this, every time an idea does come up to use this money, I do have to check with Ed Bean, because the IRS keeps tabs on the use of funds like this, revolving funds such as this. And at any time, if they're auditing or looking how it's spent, if they don't feel that there was a clear path to it benefiting people with disabilities, they have a right to tell the city that those funds can't be used again for an event of that nature. And I want this group to keep that in mind, that the focus of these funds should always be that it is benefiting our community, the community in Somerville, persons with disabilities, because that's what this money is for.
And I think that you and I will have those conversations with Ed as the ideas come through, and they'll be a little more fluid.
Respectfully, Holly, it is important for this body to be aware of, as Brian has said, their responsibility with this money. Any board and commission that is responsible for a fund, not all of them are. You know, just like city departments are responsible for our budgets, you know, it's the same thing. It's just something that you all need to be aware of.
Okay, thank you. It is on my agenda to actually, underneath the funds, to have sort of an open conversation if people have other ideas or projects that they think are interesting. I would like to act swiftly to just have some funds put aside while we look at dates, options, and review this with Ed Bean or any other stakeholders within the city. So I'm going to rescind my first motion, and I'm gonna ask that we allocate $4,000 for tickets, specifically hearing that we had 40 tickets. Rather than shoot for 20, if we could get 30, it's a much more expensive event, but I think I'd like to put a motion that we put aside $4,000 for tickets to the Celtics game.
I'll
Do I
second.
have a second?
Yeah, I second Harriet.
Shall we take a vote?
Sure.
Okay, all those in favor of allocating $4,000 towards a Celtics game, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
I have a Brian, I have Harriet, Deborah. You're a no, okay, that's fine. Thank you, Pauline. I'm not sure.
Anybody else on?
Brian.
What about Kate? She go with?
Kate had to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pauline,
Said
Oh.
aye.
are you in favor of allocating funds for a Celtics game? Or,
Certainly am.
okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, everyone. And as soon as information is available, we will be completely transparent and share it. Okay, I want to read one more card next, and then we're gonna move on. I'm going to read two quick ones. These are shorter ones, still very, very important. Thank you so much for this scholarship. I plan on attending Regis College to study special education and hopes to be a first grade special ed teacher. Thank you for your generous donation. I am honored I was chosen for this scholarship. The funds will help support my educational journey in college, with much gratitude and appreciation. So we have one medium length and we have one beautiful long one to read. Let's see, let me go back. I think we talked about open commissioner seats sort of briefly. We know there are some interested residents. There's been a lot of work done with the being done with the city in ensuring that the procedure of interviewing, the process, Adrian, you're probably going to want to jump in here, but making sure that everything is done equally and the same, and that we're following the same process. There's been recent training around that, and also there is training coming up the 21st that we all are attending.
I believe it's the 19th.
19th, thank you.
It's nobody's fault. It has changed like 2 or 3 times.
Oh, no worries.
So it's perfectly fine if you don't know what the date is, because
I don't know what today is. So it is the anti-bias training, and that's another important step in this process.
Yeah, and anti-bias training is for all commissioners, not just the commissioners who will represent the commission on the interview panels.
And Helen, I just wanted to add for a few minutes a little bit of information. The process in which the municipality has to follow to put out the call for commissioners, the timeframes around that, the process of receiving applications, and then with the new system that has been put in place by the city, we are moving as quickly as we can and as diligently as we can. So the next steps are having this next set of training and then moving forward with some interviews. And there's a process involved there. A subcommittee as part of the commission and with RSJ will be interviewing candidates. And then it'll go back to the commission to vote on recommendations. And then a letter is sent to the mayor. And from there, RSJ works internally with the mayor's office on the next steps. And then once the mayor recommends or approves or moves candidates to the next step, they go to, it's sort of like a hearing, but it's more of like a broader interview with a commission within the city council. And then they go to the appointments committee. So
thank you for that information. I must say.
Thank you
Thanks,
for being patient so we could get to a point where we could share that. And we have to follow all of those steps. It does take a lot of time. Trust me, everyone on this call and everyone in the city would love to see us have a faster process, but we need to do all of those steps in order. And Brian, you have something you'd like to add?
I would like to add that things have certainly changed in the last not too many years. But thank you for that information.
You're welcome.
I hope to be there at some point.
Well, we appreciate that you're here tonight, and we appreciate that you have interest, but we have a good team led by
understand.
Adrian that really works a lot. It works a lot of hours behind the scenes on this process.
Yeah.
What I just said is very simplified.
Okay, thank you. I will try to sit in on meetings anyway, so that I can learn a little more about what goes on.
And Adrian is the best resource for you to reach out to. She can give you information. Adrian, do you need to change anything that I said in a very high level about the process?
No, no, not really. And Helen, as I said, I'll call you tomorrow. But it's sort of very much, since I just finished watching the US Open because I'm a tennis fan, I think of it as kind of a volley back and forth. So this group goes through the process of interviewing and selecting, and then you all volley that to the mayor's office. She puts it on the city council agenda, and then they volley it to a committee. And then all those potential members, actually along with me and Holly, go to that committee meeting just to introduce themselves. And then that committee checks that box and sends it back via the mayor, city council for the final approval. So it's a somewhat of a long-winded tennis match is how I would describe it. But Helen, I will call you tomorrow and explain it in further detail.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I believe Brian has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. Please go ahead. Brian.
This is Brian. Time check. It is 8:40, 10 minutes after we were supposed to adjourn.
No, that's not.
The meeting ends at 9.
We're doing 9 tonight.
Oh,
Brian.
we are doing 9.
Yeah.
My apologies. I thought we were at 7 to 8:30.
Yeah, that's
No,
that starts next month.
Okay.
Right?
My apologies.
Right?
no need to apologize. No need at all. But thank you for keeping us on task and time. I appreciate that very much. I'm going to read a medium length card, a thank you note, and then I'm going to save the last one towards the end of our meeting. It is an honor to be chosen for this scholarship. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your generosity, for your donation. I am able to finish my education at Salem State because of it. I think we have some background noise. Oh, thank you. Whoever needed to mute their phones.
Now we're back.
Oh, Harriet, I think it may be you. If you wouldn't mind going.
I think there's just some technical stuff going on, Harriet and Frank's side. Can you hear us, Harriet and Frank?
Oh, we lost you.
Wait, are we on mute?
Or-
No, you're not on mute. We think there was a bit of a glitch.
The thing is, we've had a few, usually shorter, but we've had internet glitches that we rarely, if ever, have. We're very puzzled about it. So yeah, we lost it for just like whatever, 30
10
seconds.
seconds, yeah.
Yeah.
10 or 15.
Yeah, that's right.
Just making sure.
Did we, oh, you just were starting to read the note. I think that's what it was.
Why don't I read that last note again? Oh, I can't bend. Okay. It's an honor to be chosen for the scholarship. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your generosity, for your donation. I am able to finish my education at Salem State because of it.
Lovely.
Okay, so I think we talked about reporting on the funds, the scholarships. I'm just going to bring us back to accessible communication. I'm just going to talk about, oh, sorry, go ahead,
I
Deborah.
just had a question. You had listed here that there were challenges with the scholarship. What were those challenges that?
Oh, sure. Good question. This was the first allocation of funds that we made and understanding that process. And it was a large amount. It was $50,000, and there are certain thresholds that must be followed. And as the amount increases, the accounting needs increase. And this involved a contract with several sort of standard pieces within it, but a lot of customization that had to be done. And that included having a sort of like a rules of engagement or a memo of understanding. And it had to literally piece by piece call out each of the steps that each of the parties would be doing. So the responsibility of the foundation, the responsibility of the city, and it needed to be quite detailed. And so there was a lot of time working with the foundation, with RSJ, with our finance group. And that was certainly a challenge, not something that we couldn't do, but it was a lot of work. And I think that it was a great success to be there. Adrian and I both attended, and the students and their families were, it was a wonderful evening. And these students aren't told, they apply, they fill out one application, and they choose some scholarships that they'd like to be considered for, but they will get a notice that says you're being awarded a scholarship. It doesn't tell them how many, it doesn't tell them what they're for, it certainly doesn't tell them the amount, and they get invited to this event. And they're called up, and each group speaks a little bit about what their program is and why their scholarship was founded. And there's some amazing individuals that have formed scholarships for our high school students. And I got to name them. I got to stand up and speak a little bit about what we do and the importance of these scholarships and how they will be supporting these students who've had some challenges along the way, who've dealt with, they tell very personal stories, and they also talk very much about what they want to do in their careers and what drove them there many times. And one thing that I found very interesting is much of the applications were redacted. And one of the, and so there were no names, there were no financial information, there was no things like, are you first generation, or the things that were important was to understand particular answers of free text. Like, tell us about a moment where you learned something, tell us about when you volunteered, or tell us about these sports. So it was really to see that information. And if a student chose to speak about something very personal, or shared with them things that certainly tied to our mission very much, we would read that, but we certainly would never ask those questions. But I can tell you of the 10 students that we were able to give these scholarships to, they all had very diverse backgrounds. They all had very different situations. They all volunteered. Most of them were best buddies. Many of them talked about family members that they take care of. Many of them talked about the value of education, and they all talked about the specific programs and why they chose them. And they were all health careers. And so there's a lot of gratitude for me to be able to give these 10 students something that was quite large. There were not a lot of scholarships that were $5,000 a piece. And these students and their families were very overwhelmed. They were very gracious. But what I wasn't expecting was that they were all female students. Not that they should be all male or all female or a mix, but it was just, oh, these are all young women that are going to go on to medical careers. And they were, many of them received 2 or 3 scholarships. The candidates were just so impressive. The students that are graduating from our public high school, we have a lot to be proud of. There's always more work to be done, but it was really a pleasure to meet these 10 students. So, Harriet.
And I believe you presented it at their graduation or some major event. So it wasn't just the students you presented to their entire families and friends. Is that not so?
It was, yes. So it was the Somerville High School Scholarship Foundation is a separate entity, and they manage all of these different scholarships. So they have one award night where students come, have been selected. Again, they're not told, and they bring their families, and they're not told what they've been awarded or the amounts or any details. So they're pretty much surprised as their name gets called up each time. So it was nice to have the opportunity to speak a few minutes about our commission and to give those students their awards. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Pauline was there also. The
Good.
first time I got to meet you, Miss Pauline. What did you think of the event?
I thought it was great. I really did. The only thing is I couldn't hear half of what was said. I
You know,
forget where I was sitting, but it was very hard to hear.
There were some challenges with the people who got up and spoke about each of the different scholarships. There was some issues where they were soft speakers, or it was too low or too high. And I think it was hard for the facilitators to sort of run up and change that. And I was sitting in the first or second row right near you, and I had similar problems.
Yeah,
but it was a wonderful event.
it was.
It was a long event. There were 30 or 40 scholarships, groups of scholarships that were given at that night. So, thank you for asking, Deborah. So we have 9 minutes. Let's have a brief discussion. I'd love to hear from some of our members or who may not have spoken a lot tonight, who might be interested in sharing some ideas about our funds. I think that Brian and Adrian brought up some very valid points about our fiscal responsibility and how we could partner on larger projects. I can't think of, maybe Adrian or Brian would like to give an example of when that would be, or Frank, who's raising his hand.
Yes, just being a community path user and walking with Harriet, always wondered about signs telling bicyclists to please both ring their bell or announce passing, especially when there's a cane user, because when you can't see, you might not be walking straight. Like there's no guarantee that we can walk straight when we can't see. And also understand the possibility that the person on the path who's in front of you might not be able to hear. So even if you do announce, they might still not know that you are behind. I don't know how to phrase this in a catchy way that can fit on a sign.
It's
But-
okay.
But would this be the type of signage that our funds could be used for, or was that really more of a responsibility of the city?
Who knows?
Yeah.
But I can tell you that either way, it's a great suggestion to bring forward. And I'm going to take another U-turn for a second because it ties back to something we didn't get to share earlier. And I apologize about that, but it reminds me, Adrian, of a great opportunity that you shared where our commission can partner with other teams within RSJ to do some spot ads or to do some events and talk about our life stories, our journeys, things that can be challenging, things that can be rewarding. And, you know, kind of seems to be a part of talking about when people are on a bike path or when people are, you know, crossing the street or on a bike, someone could decide to say, this is my experience as a white cane user or as a person with a hearing loss, what it's like to be that person, not necessarily to allocate funds for, although I'm not saying that wouldn't be appropriate, but sort of sharing our perspective. Adrian, I know well, here, I gave you 6 whole minutes to talk about these 2 wonderful opportunities.
Yeah, and I want to do that, Holly, but I do want to go back to what Frank said, because
Please.
that is a really great example of where this funding could help fill in a gap that the city doesn't have funding to do. Because as far as I know, signs that Frank are describing, and I'm going to say it because it's true, are probably not required by the ADA, which means the city doesn't have something like that on their radar, even though it's a really, really great idea to say. And it's not just for cyclists. We have runners on the community path. We have people strollers. We have power walkers. I walk on the community path and sometimes I go really fast. And it's shared space, right, of people traversing that path in a variety of ways. And if, to Frank and Harriet's point, if you are using a cane or you are blind or you have or you can't hear as well, you're not going to hear a cyclist behind you. You are not going to hear somebody training for a marathon behind you because they are sort of in their zone. So I just want to give a little space for that, Holly, because I think that is a little separate. The storytelling, what Holly is talking about is that the Melrose Commission on Disability did a night over the summer. They called it a storytelling event. And so they organized with a venue, and they had people from the community who identified as disabled sort of do almost not an open mic, it was planned, but they had a set time and they were able just to share with the people in the room about their stories of their lived experience. And I think I know the chair of that commission, if he's still the chair. If not, I know how to get a hold of him. So that is something just to think on. I don't think we have time tonight to really talk about it. And then another thing is the Department of Racial and Social Justice is interested in trying to do some sort of film series around social justice issues. I believe these would potentially take place at the Armory in their bigger space there. But it would be an opportunity to engage not only this commission, but the Women's Commission, the Human Rights Commission. So I just want folks to maybe be thinking of films or documentaries, shorter films that maybe talk about that lived experience, are done in a way that is true to, I think, the disability community. We know that unfortunately within the film industry, they often get it wrong, right? And so be thinking if there's something you've seen or you know something out there, just communicate with me and we can get that ball rolling. But I don't want, so that's all I'm going to say about that for right now, Holly, because what Frank has said and Harriet have said are the exact things, sort of capital wise, that this money could potentially be used for. And I know, I don't think Nicole's on anymore. But one thing is, when a new park is created in the city, it is ADA compliant when created. Obviously, parks take a lot of wear and tear because they're parks and playgrounds get used. But there are many enhancements to already accessible playgrounds that are not in city budgets. So the best example I can use is I don't even know what you call it, but it's a board where a child could go up and touch a picture and be able to communicate. A communication board could communicate to his family or whoever he is with what he wanted to do at the park, because maybe he's nonverbal. So he knows he sees a picture of a slide and he knows he wants to go down the slide. So he could tell whoever things like that. I don't think those things exist. But I think they're another sort of almost an above and beyond measure as well. So
I think that's a great example.
yeah, so I want to honor what Frank said, because it's very much in line with a fruitful conversation. And I think Brian would agree with me that we could have around the community path and some specific signage. And I think it could be creative in a way.
That really ties back to an overall communication goal, and an awareness of what different people need. We're talking this yesterday, we were speaking with Haken about improving communications, different ways for us to share information. And I certainly think that your idea of signage sort of hits multiple boxes. It hits, sharing our voice. It hits education. It is something that we can supplement for the city. It's also some sort of a kickoff point of where people can reach us, or, I see it having, I see it. I'm sure there are other things that would have values in multiple areas.
Right.
Anyone else have an idea or a thought around? Yes, Miss Deborah.
One thing that I've been interested in is the Council on Aging provides a lot of enrichment programs for elder adults in the city, but they're, while they have many of the same issues of there being a cross population with disability, they're not available to younger adults with disabilities. And I was thinking that having some kind of programming that allowed for people with disabilities to come together and do things like adapted yoga, like chair yoga, or other get-together type activities, because a lot of the experience of having a disability can be very isolating.
That's a great point. Thank you. One thing that a long time ago was looked at was, is it Boston Builders, the rock wall climbing place in Somerville, and how some people, this particular person used a chair, but had great upper body strength and had this interest. I guess there are certain times, there are programs that allow people with disabilities to actually, with either assistance or, I'm not going to say it correctly, but the idea was to get people with disabilities, whatever their needs would be, to be able to participate at Boston Builders, because they have sometimes run some different clinics or special events. So, and I think another thing that came up was sometimes we have space like behind the high school and the Green Line on near Medford Street. There's a little area that's there that has fixed equipment that's used for training. So there's a bar for pull-ups. There's something that you can hold your feet and do sit-ups. There's different, Brian, you know what I'm talking about. You have that look on your face.
Oh, the
No.
outdoor gym, right? The outdoor gym.
Yeah.
On
It's, and they're great because they're well maintained. They're areas that anybody can walk up to safely and add to their exercise. And there was a suggestion a while ago to have maybe in those installations or separate to have ones that are built for people who may need, who may have different needs, but in that similar area. And I personally don't have the experience to articulate what that would be, but this person was very interested in sort of adding to those areas, or like Brian and Adrian and Frank have talked about, actually partnering with the city and building one.
Great, great.
We are at 9:03. Oh my God, I have to read this. Give me 2 minutes. I'll read really fast. Dear Scholarship, I am so glad to have been chosen for the scholarship this year. I'm honored. I just graduated 4 days ago and I will be attending Bunker Hill for this fall semester, then transfer to UMass Boston afterwards. Saying thank you is not enough for me because you've done me a huge favor. I wish I could see you and hug you, tell you all the problems this money is gonna save, but since I can't, I will pay you back by focusing on my education, getting good grades, and being the surgeon I've wanted to be as a kid. This scholarship is going to help with transportation to Bunker Hill. It's going to help with books, school supplies, tuition, and a lot more. It's also going to help my family. I will forever remember this scholarship. I can't read that. Because it means so much to me. And thank you to everyone who donated it this year. You guys are changing young people's lives. I know you changed mine. I tried finding this information about our scholarship, but I couldn't find more information. But either way, may God, Allah bless you abundantly.
Beautiful.
Beautiful penmanship, little hearts, and I couldn't write that small if I had to. I'm lucky I can write that small. So I didn't include the names of the students, not that I couldn't, but I just felt it was more important to hear what they wrote than to know who wrote that. And we've processed or in the process of getting those payments to the foundation for 9 students. And we're expecting the last student to have their paperwork to be reviewed and processed the end of this week or early next week. So I would call that a great success, everyone.
Hey,
It's 9:06.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that
second.
motion. All those in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Much appreciated. Good to see you all and hear you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.